All right, everyone, welcome back into another Fantasy Golf video. Had the Charles Schwab Challenge live stream here for you guys. If you have any questions, make sure to get those in. If you have any questions after the video is live as well, put those in the comment section, whether that be on Twitter or YouTube, streaming on both right now. So happy to help out. This week, the Charles Schwab Challenge is pretty much summed up for both betting and DFS purposes, whether or not you are going with Scotty Scheffler. I feel pretty comfortable to do that. I will say I do not like that he does have the PMT time. Let's actually start kind of with the weather in terms of getting into the preview of this video. So looking at it right now, Thursday, and I like to use the PGA Tour weather. I think it's a little bit more appealing pretty much. But essentially Thursday morning through the first 3 hours, it's going to be a little bit calmer for those AM golfers than it is supposed to be for the PM. But also there's the potential for some storms on Thursday evening. And then you just never know what that's going to mean for golfers on Friday in terms of weather delays and whatnot, how they're going to go about handling that. And so that does deter me a little bit away from Scotty, not really in DFS. I did like the idea of doing Scotty Scheffler wire to wire victory, and I'm still going to do that. Like I already have that out there. But I don't know. I wish he had the early AMT time. Let's just put it that way. But looking at it, in terms of showdown purposes, I do think we probably want to be targeting a little bit more of the AMT times. Now, for full slate purposes, I don't know if I actually see like an AM PM advantage. There could be. Like, don't get me wrong, there could be, but I don't think like we can predict that right now. It's not like significant enough. It's just one of those things like in retrospect we could see, but just we've had many times on the PGA Tour where we have thought there would be a specific advantage weather tee time wise, and because of the weather tee time wise, like delay wise and whatnot, and it's just the exact opposite. You never know exactly what they're going to do. I think a perfect example of that would actually be last week, where last week, guys, the first two rounds, the PGA Championship, and I know it's different people that are in charge of the PGA Championship, but they decided not to let it be lift, clean, and play on Friday and Thursday, where on Saturday they decide to do that. So definitely interesting there. Like you just never know for sure what they're going to do. So that is a variable that we do have to think about when we're going through our processes this week. But with that, let's just go ahead and kind of just jump into the prize picks and underdog picks here for this week. So keeping in mind, again, we don't exactly know specifically what to expect weather-wise. That could change some things. It could make the green softer, which maybe, if the rain comes in. But for the most part, I do favor a little bit more of the AM guys just in terms of predictability. So that might be the concentration that I have this week. And so let's go ahead and get into the showdown picks here. Let me find that slide. There we go. So I want to start with underdog. It seems like a lot more of the fantasy golf space is enjoying underdog a little bit more. I will say you shouldn't be choosing one or the other just right off the bat. Like we got some edges on PrizePicks, we have some edges on underdog. That's just naturally going to occur, regardless of either site. So right now, if you are betting an underdog, the best prop bets that we have on paper are actually going to be some over fantasy scores. So the 9 to 5 data already does like Chris Kirk a decent amount. So that's one where you could get to already. But Keith Mitchell, someone that I do think does pop. When he's hot, he could usually get that over fantasy score. Tom Hoagie, I don't mind. And then, Billy Horschel. Those are all okay. But really, on paper, on underdog this week, we have two good prop bets on paper. It's okay. We don't need to force that much. But what I always like to do is I just like to look at these discrepancies. This has been the biggest edge thus far this season. We saw this last week with round one, where round one, there's like 4 prop bets where the lines were off by 1. 2 of them middled. 1 of them was a push. Oh, they corrected them. No, that's unfortunate. So earlier on in the day, we did have a couple that we can middle. They corrected that. But yeah, it's huge, guys, when that does occur because, 2 of them were pushes last week, and that was nice. And then it just ended up being, I think it was PrizePicks, where it ended up just being a pretty awesome slate in general on PrizePicks. So do take advantage of that when it occurs. But as you see right now, probably not too much. I'm wondering which one went up. I think PrizePicks went up a little bit with their projections, which take that for what it's worth. But yeah, PrizePicks is where we are seemingly getting some decent edges fantasy score wise. That's pretty much it. Fairways hit Jordan Spieth. I probably don't want to touch that one, to be honest with you. It doesn't seem that fruitful. Let's take a peek at PrizePicks. PrizePicks, we are getting 2 birdie or better prop bets that kind of pop. I don't exactly like them though. So yeah, Brant Snedeker for over 2.5 birdies or better, and also Kevin Kisner over 2.5 birdies or better. I don't really want to touch those, honestly, but I could be talked into it. So if anyone also agrees with the data there, you can run that out. And then Scotty Scheffler for unders, birdie or betters at 4.5. That's okay. Again, if the weather does end up playing the way it's projected to play, that could happen for him. Projected to get 4.2, so it's nothing too crazy. And then we're getting a bunch of them that are essentially pushes. So yeah, I mean, the data on PrizePicks really likes the unders for birdies or better. That's okay. I think if I'm attacking the slate, it's actually going to be on those underdog prop bets for the over fantasy scores. So like if I had to give a bet of the day for underdog, it'd be these two. And then maybe you could toss in Chris Kirk, Billy Horschel as well. That'd probably be the route I would want to go underdog wise. And so with that, that kind of does echo a little bit of what we're going to be looking at round one showdown wise. So let's go ahead and jump on into that. So again, I already mentioned that I probably am going to be targeting a little bit more of the AMT times. Maybe not heavily. Like it's probably going to be a slight emphasis that I put on the AMT times. I don't know if we need to go crazy with that. And so I don't think we need to do like early only tee times because we are taking Sky Scheffler off the board if we do that. We are taking some other golfers off the board if we do that. And so that's my biggest concern. So when I'm looking at something like the 9 to 5 custom model here, what I'm doing, and the only data point that I'm putting in there, because this already does factor in what the projected round scoring is I'm doing a slight AM PM advantage. So nothing too crazy. So that's the only data point I'm putting in there right now. And then I'm just going to export that. And then I'm going to upload it to the lineup builder here. And so this would be for round one showdown purposes. So this is what we'd be looking at. So it doesn't like Scotty as much just because he has that A or PMT time. So if you want to adjust that, what you would do is, if you not going to blame me if you want to get more of Scotty, right? He is projected to get 4.5 birdies or better on underdog. Like that's not a terrible idea. But what you would want to do then is just raise his line up a little bit. Let's say 135, just to ensure that we're gaining him. Let's see. That'd be the only difference that you would do though. And if you do that, let's see. Yeah, we're still not getting that much of Scotty. It just likes the more fair and balanced approach to make good builds. So, yeah, if you really want to get Scotty, you'd probably just lock him into 30% of your builds. That'd pretty much be it. Now, I think Collin Morikawa is going to be a good pick to have the first round lead. I believe he has the early tee time. I'll get into that in a second. But, showdown purposes, not terrible. We got it really spread out. I will say, when you put in Scotty, we went from 30% bazzoon out to 10%. So it definitely goes from being like a more fair and balanced approach with the Sky Scheffler builds to a lot more of studs and dudsy, as we can see. Andrew Novak there, Chan Kim, who are two plays I really like value-wise. Justin Lauer's mixed in there, so it does make sense. I'm kind of okay with that as well. And so just in general, in terms of what we're looking at for showdown purposes, yeah, Scotty's one, Collin Morikawa, Finau, Max Homa, Siwoo, Jordan, Mark Hubbard's up there. So interestingly enough, let's actually take a peek at that a little bit further. And let's see here. Let's get in the best bets, the betting page here. So we go to first round lead. I just want to see what their numbers are. We'll go early only. Okay, so Mark Hubbard doesn't have the early only tee time. That's unfortunate. So what I typically like to do, this is how we were able to get on Xander the last 2 weeks. This is typically when it's a full cut event, I should say. What I like to do is I just like to target the top 7 golfers that have the AMT time. That cash 58% of the time. And I think it was 2022. I'm not sure if it was 2023. Anyways, 58% of the time, which is not too crazy because a lot of the times there's ties, right? Like that's not too crazy. It's been nice the last really 2 months or so because a lot of the first round leads haven't been ties or they haven't been chopped up 4 ways or 5 ways. So that has been a nice load advantage. So what we're looking at, I like Collin Morikawa this week, 25-1 to have the first round lead. That's pretty solid. Max Homa, 33-1. Obviously, you like that. Tony Finau, 40-1, pretty good. A lot of people are betting on Harris English this week in general, outright-wise. I'm not going to say I hate that, but probably the better approach would be Harris English, 45-1 on William Hill to have the first round lead, or Bovada, 45-1. Again, not everyone has access to that. I get why you wouldn't want to do that, but at the same time, pretty decent bets there. And then Siwoo Kim. Actually, these next three are really golfers that I don't know what to do with, like DFS wise. Batting wise, I'm kind of okay just tossing a couple of bets out there with them because if they're on their game, like great. At least betting wise, they're only ruining one slip, whereas DFS wise, they'd be ruining a whole lineup. That'd be the concern. So, Siwoo Kim 50-1 on Bet365. That's great. Otherwise, 45-1. Aaron Rice 60-1, and then Thomas Dietrich 55-1 and 60-1 in some spots. So, those three. That's where I'm more comfortable betting on them. Honestly, is first round leader. Let's see any other kind of long shots. I mean, Chan Kim, I could see having the first round lead, 125-1. He's been decent this year. Andrew Novak, he's solid. Wouldn't be shocking to see like any of those guys just tie, chop for a first round lead. I don't see them going extremely low and winning it so low. So I do think we have some good options. But yeah, really, I always go with the top few guys there. Let's see. Let's adjust the view a little bit. It should still be the same. So this is based off of first round lead rank when we toss in the optional metrics there, just as an FY. This is first round rank. It's a little bit different than model rank, but it's typically going to be the same. So yeah, really the same people. It actually is telling us to be on Siwoo Kim, Aaron Rye a little bit more than Harris English, and then Mingwoo Lee, Keith Mitchell, and Thomas Dietrich. So right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so not Keith Mitchell, not Thomas Dietrich. I wouldn't blame you if you did Keith Mitchell, Thomas Dietrich, but the day is telling us to do what I like to do. I don't really like Mingwoo Lee. But Harris English, Aaron Rice, Siwoo Kim, Max Homa, Tony Finau, Kyle Morikawa, definitely fine betting those guys first round lead for sure. So with that, let's go ahead and jump now into the outright bets for this week. I already did an outright betting video for you guys yesterday. So if you guys have seen that, this is just going to be a recap of that. It's also just going to be a recap of the 9 to 5 write-up. So if you are someone that's honestly been struggling fantasy golf-wise thus far this season, I would imagine a lot of it comes down to not taking advantage of this write-up. Been doing it for several years now. Feels underappreciated by the fantasy community. I know it's not always the best written, but the success that this baby has had. Like when you look at it sample build wise, 4 for 6 that ended up cashing, 5 for 6, and 6 for 6 last week. And so that's always just a good resource in general. But what I want to look at here right now is going to be outright bets. Okay, so yeah, originally I liked Scotty wire to wire. I already placed that bet 18-1. I still think that that's a good bet. Like if you are going to bet on Scotty, I think that that's the route you should go. And then I really have a lot of conviction on Morikawa to win this week. It does feel the closest to Xander that we had last week. So I'm comfortable betting him that way. And then I'm okay with the 2 long shot bets, Lucas Glover, Mark Hubbard. I'm not exactly sure if their odds are still the same right now. I'll pull that up here in a second. I was originally able to get Mark Hubbard at 100-1, which was great. That has since changed. Still not bad. And I did toss in the fact that I was toying around with Billy Horschel, Tony Finau, Thomas Dietrich, and Harris English. I'm still all okay with those 4. And really what I want to do with, how I do my videos and data, I'm not telling you guys to do anything specifically. I like to give you guys the resources to be successful, to make the best decisions possible. So like, this is my way of saying, if you guys are on those 4, feel confident about it. I feel pretty good about those. And if we look at, this is just something I've noticed throughout the year, guys. This year we have 4 good outright bets. And I say good in quotes. This is measuring the past 2 seasons winners. What were their key stats in terms of like recent form, course history, and then just actual key stats. What led to them being winners, and we're taking all those stats. We're in the top 80th percentile in terms of those winners. And then we're comparing that to the field that we have. And so those players would be Scotty, Finau, Siwoo, and Chris Kirk, surprisingly. Now, if you do the 70th percentile, it does open it up a decent amount. And so that's where I do like Billy Horschel. I do like Colin Morikawa. I do like Harris English. The one player that's not in there is Thomas Dietrich. And the reason I like Thomas Dietrich is because he's been, very hit or miss. When he's been on, he's been close to winning. Then what you will also not see is Mark Hubbard. Mark Hubbard was on the list as a long shot only bet as well, which that's what we're using them for. So we're kind of happy with that. So I do want to take a peek at these odds as they sit right now. Let's see if they changed it all. So here we go. I guess if you're trying to find like an early, let's see here, an early only advantage, you can maybe do it that way. Obviously, you'd probably just be going Morikawa, I would assume. Yeah, nothing too crazy there. And so let's take a peek. So yeah, if you're trying to go early only, maybe because there could potentially be that advantage. I don't really think there's going to be again, but then you'd probably feel comfortable going Morikawa, Finau, English, and then maybe even Siwoo if you wanted to. That could be the route that you go. I don't know if we need to do that though, so let's go ahead and just again Scotty Scheffler. We'll touch on him. He's the easy one. I think the best bet is going to be wire to wire win with him. But yeah, just really not the best bets across the board. The best that you have is 2.75 to 1 bet MGM. Kyle Morikawa going to be more of the same, really not that good of odds. I haven't looked at the without Scotty market. I know last week Xander was like 10 to 1 to win, and that was still pretty decent. So maybe if you could get like Morikawa 8 to 1 to win without Scotty, I'd probably be okay with that. Right now, 12 to 1 across the board. Those are pretty darn good odds for him. So kind of comfortable with that with Morikawa. Then let's see Glover and Hubbard. So Glover, you can still get at 71 on a bunch of sites. So that is pretty awesome. So, going back to the write-up now, obviously we'd want a 71. We'd want to take advantage of the best odds that we got. So that'd be great. But let's touch on why Glover is popping up as much as he is again. So Lucas Glover, again, my data really likes to promote both safety and upside. So it's going to really focus on safety-based stats, if that makes sense. Like players that are just not going to put themselves into poor situations, players that are going to set themselves up for success. And part of what goes into that is looking at golfers that make the cut and golfers that have been putting together great results. And so when you look at it that way, yeah, Lucas Glover, no duh, he pops, right? Like basically all of his events have been top 35 or better finishes minus last week, which was the PGA Championship, which was a more difficult event in an event that he started +3 on an early tee time. Like it did seem like he probably just literally wasn't warmed up. And then he settled in. Like if you turn those into pars, it's a much better finish for him, right? Like, I mean, 3 strokes is a lot, but not a good course for him. This is going to be a much better course for him, a course where he has already finished top 10. This bet feels very strong. And it's also the fact that, like, maybe you don't want to bet him outright. Maybe you're worried about his upside, although compared to the players in the field, he has the second best win percentage over his last 20 starts. Maybe there's something to that. Now, I think everyone would say he just got hot, right? Like everyone would say he just got hot for a small stretch. That stuff happens. Brendan Todd being an example from years ago. That stuff does randomly happen. But he is really setting up well this week is Lucas Glover. And let's say you don't want to bet him to win. I could get that. Like I could understand that. We do have some other options for Lucas Glover this week. Not first round lead. 2 top 5, 12 to 1. Same odds as Colin Morikawa, right? Maybe you don't want to do that. Top 10, 5 to 1. Pretty solid. But the fact that we are getting a made cut prop on him, to me, is encouraging. If you guys have access to Bet365, 0.44 to 1. Pretty good. I'm okay using him in a parlay to make the cut. 0.34 to 1. Those are some pretty good odds for him. And I'd be happy to run those out, especially with the Mark Hubbard made cut, which we'll get into Mark Hubbard. And so it's weird. I put on the write-up, and I want to see if I can reference this. Yeah. So Mark Hubbard is basically the exact same play as Lucas Glover. The only difference, and this will sound weird, is that Mark Hubbard has a little bit more upside. Mark Hubbard has a little bit more upside, but Glover's the one that has a little bit more winning upside. And obviously that's because Glover has won more recently, but we have seen a little bit more splashes of Mark Hubbard more recently on the leaderboards. It's really with Mark Hubbard. He's been really strong the first few rounds and then kind of tails off on the weekend. But that's one of those things where I think maybe just Mark Hubbard seeing himself consistently on top of the leaderboard at parts of tournaments, that can be huge for him mentally, and then he just needs to break through. So, again, I really think he's not a terrible outright bet. 90 to 1 now on FanDuel, so not as good as the 100 to 1 earlier, but still a good bet. You can get him at 0.44 to 1 to make the cut on DraftKings. That seems like a very good bet. Like, that'd be my bet of the day. I know you're not getting paid out that much. That's not that much there. That's unfortunate, but a pretty strong bet across the board. So Really don't mind that one. And you could parlay those two together. I'd be pretty comfortable doing that if you wanted a little bit of a better payout boost. Both of these two golfers do have top 10 finishes at this tournament over the past 4 years as well. So that is encouraging to me as well. I'll show up Mark Hubbard's profile here for you guys as well, just so you can see it. See what I'm looking at. Again, very much a similar play to that of Lucas Glover. But more recently, Mark Hubbard has a top 10 finish, but still has made the cut at every start at this event. Maybe not the best staff fit across the board, but really coming in, checking all the boxes. Top 30 in course history, top 30 staff fit, top 13 specialist, and top 5 in recent form. So really just a strong play across the board. Very comfortable with him as a pick. 1 second, guys. Going to take a quick break, and then I'll jump back into the live stream here. So 1 second. All right, and we're back. So throat was getting a little dry. Just need to take care of that. Yeah, we got a comment here from Aaron. So appreciate you going live to provide us. Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you guys being here. So if you do have any questions, happy to help. I used to do these every single week about really before COVID, honestly. And then like a year after that, and then just life got busy. Wasn't able to really do live streams the way I would like to do it. I'd like to kind of put my best foot forward, if that makes sense. So I like it to be high quality, which is probably a little bit of a detriment to myself, but that's just how I am. So yeah, happy to give these live streams out to you guys. But with that, let's kind of go ahead and jump now into some ownership talk. Kind of mentioning the other guys that I don't mind betting wise. Let's get into some ownership talk because it is fascinating this week ownership wise, I will say. So first and foremost, like Scotty Scheffler, I had seen his max ownership, like his ceiling ownership, be like 45 this week, and his low be like 32. So there is a wide range of what his ownership could come out to be. But the point is, at 39, let's just round up, we shouldn't be making any moves. So what that means is if you are already on him, don't adjust, which is kind of crazy, right? At 39% ownership. I get it. Like, it's obviously Sky Scheffler's a stud. We can easily fit him in there, but at that pricing, it is kind of crazy, right? But that's just what this season has been, and we can easily fit Scotty into our build. So, like, I do think we should be doing that. In one of the sample builds that I kind of called out, like, it was super easy to do that. And again, I just do the sample builds to kind of show you guys my lineup thought process through the week. This is typically not my end all be all. But like I kind of point out, you could easily get Scotty and Kyle Morikawa in there and still have some pretty good values in there. So you can definitely make that work if you choose to do so. But I do find it interesting because Scotty's so high owned. Some of the best leverage plays you can get are, well, Kyle Morikawa's ownership has went up from yesterday, but still Jordan Spieth, Max Homa, a little bit of Tony Finau, and then Mingwoo Lee as well. So that's definitely interesting there as well. One thing I want to point out is when we're looking at this, and again, this will probably change throughout the night and whatnot, but Adam Scott's ownership is extremely low compared to the other players around him. So that's part of the piece here, part of the puzzle, is that this does compare like the other players around a certain player's price tag. And it's like Adam Scott, and compared to the other golfers around him, does stand out like a sore thumb. It makes sense why the Vegas leverage rank would have it at 3. The 9-5 data apparently likes Adam Scott a little bit better than Vegas, which is fine. Would have him as the best leverage rank play, but it's pretty easy to see why that is pulling in there. I will say Bazoon out here, C-Bez, as I like to call him, does feel a little bit like Benny Ann and kind of Denny McCarthy last week, where he might end up being chalk in cash, and that would be a head scratcher to me. Especially given the value that we have on the board this week in terms of, well, let's say it, Lucas Glover, Mark Hubbard, and their ownerships are getting up there, which finally, some people might be tuning into the 9-5 data. Finally, this will be the bad week if that's the case. Fair warning. But they're kind of the clear-cut values that people should be on. Adam Shank's fine, GPP only play, but a little bit unfortunate that people are now getting to them. But that's kind of the thing. It's like, I haven't been able to get to many golfers in that 8K range because the 7K range is just absolutely loaded with quality plays. But I will say nothing like too crazy ownership wise. Like, yeah, between Andrew Putnam, Mark Hubbard, and Lucas Glover, you probably are going Lucas Glover, Mark Hubbard. Like, I still really like Andrew Putnam. Seb Straka, probably a little bit overowned. Tom Hoagie, probably a little bit overowned. Danny McCarthy, apparently people didn't learn their lesson last week. He feels overpriced. Like, why would he be higher priced than Lucas Glover this week, purely because of his ownership last week, his kind of random ownership last week. So I don't expect that to be that high. Like, you would imagine Denny McCarthy at 8.7 being 1,000 more expensive than Mark Hubbard. Very similar play. You would expect, McCarthy should probably be half that. And that's kind of my problem with Bazoon out as well. Sky Scheffler, he is coming in on some of the most overowned golfers. But this is, I like pointing this out. The way I had this set up is if you are already on a player, what is it telling you to do? So a lot of the times it's no moves needed, which basically says if you're on them, no need to adjust. If you're not on them, no need to adjust. And that's how this is as well. So I do think that's a good setup, but definitely is kind of an interesting ownership week. Some small little edges here and there, nothing massive, which I will say, it's been pretty decent lately. Except for cash. Cash has been strange. We've had several weird cash ownerships, and I know I harped on it last week, but man, Benny Ann being 50% owning cash had to be one of the most laughable things I've seen in some years. It was just strange. I don't want to harp on that again. Definitely just strange. Let's go ahead and get into kind of just the value plays you can be on this week. I already mentioned a bunch that I like, but let's just do it again. So I'm going to get back into the 9 to 5 cheat sheet here. I'm going to pull up the data slicer. One sec. Let me, no, this works. We're just going to go 7K and lower. That's typically what I like to measure as value plays. Click off of that. And so here we go. That's sort by salary. So Brennan Todd's fine. Like, you can be on him. 2 top 10 finishes here. Top 10 recently. 5 straight make cuts. Like, he's not terrible. Don't love him. Don't hate him. He should be able to make the cut. McIntyre has shown upside recently. People can be on him. Wouldn't talk you out of him. Chris Goddard, recent winner. I don't think we need to go there. This shouldn't be a good course for Chris Goddard, but Sam Stevens, 7 straight made cuts. He's been popping recently. Don't mind him. Luke List, no. Just no. Let's see. Michael Kim's interesting. 4th place finish. When he's on, he's been giving us around top 20 finishes. I don't hate him. Justin Lauer missed the cut on the number in his last start, which hurt at that event. But because of that, we are still getting him pretty cheap. And, he made the cut this event last year. Really just a strong play across the board. When you look at the 4 key metrics that we look at, specialist data, which is a better way of looking at comp courses, pulling in all the unique characteristics for that week's tournament, putting it into one data point. Parkland style course, tight fairways, hard scoring event, par 70, normal length, bent greens, firm greens, all that stuff. He's 39th in the field. That's not terrible. Top 20 in recent form still with that miscut recently, and top 50 stat fit. So across the board, grades out as someone that should be able to make the cut. Andrew Novak, Chan Kim, because they've been pretty solid recently. They rank out a little bit better than Justin Lauer. I saw Lauer. I think he was one of the players that was actually coming in slightly overowned. And I think that's what it comes down to, guys. So again, this typically will compare players around their price tag. So the reason why he's probably coming in slightly overowned here is because you can easily just get Andrew Novak and Chan Kim at a little bit lower ownerships that are just as good at plays. And it's actually kind of funny. Like, I feel like if it weren't Grayson Murray, a lot of people would be okay with getting to him. Like, there's like the name, but people just hate. He casually pops, though. Like, he should make the cut. 57% chance to make the cut at such a cheap price tag. I get why people don't want to play him, but it kind of pops. And then you got Dylan Wu right there. 7 straight make cuts for him. So he's really popping. A lot of people like Kevin Twade chasing his form. Like, this is my point, though. Like, we have a lot of value to the point where we could choose to get to both Scotty and Kyle Morikawa, which should still be a unique build. So a lot of value that I can be talked into, and I have talked myself into. But with that, let's go ahead and get into the lineup builder of this video. Again, if you guys have any questions, make sure to get those in. We did have Aaron just come in with one, so I'll answer that real quick. Let's see. Better play to close out a lineup, Dylan Wu or Grayson Murray? I went with Dylan Wu. Again, there could be bias there. Like honestly, name value, bias there, which isn't a good reason, honestly. But Dylan Wu a little bit better of a made cut streak, but Grayson Murray did just produce at a major, so I hopefully there's no wrong answer. The data likes Grayson Murray as well, and so this is kind of my battle. A lot of the times I do this, and I'll say Dylan Wu, and then probably say 55% of the time the data was better than me, and then 45% of the time I get that slight 50-50 right, which it should be 50-50, but hopefully there's no wrong answer there. Obviously, when you're playing a value like that, you are really just hoping for a made cut. Thoughts on Harris English this week? Yeah, let's touch on that. So Harris English this week, I think, is a fine play across the board. The issue with Harris English is that it's his price. So let me pull him up here for you real quick. So I got to adjust this. Got to adjust the slicer real quick. All right. So Harris English, he does really pop. Top 10 play in my model here, which if you have him a little bit higher, a little bit lower, I get it. Top 17 stat fit. He has been someone that really across the board, like I have it set up this way for a reason. Like we can see one kind of bad data point, two kind of bad data points. Other than that, pretty darn good. So missed the cut at this event 4 years ago. I kind of look at that. Oh, well, had a top 15 place finish here last year. 5 events ago, missed the cut, but other than that, has been pretty good. When he's been on, it's been top 25 finishes. And, looking at this, I'm not sure what the market is. I'm probably not going to get good odds for it. Maybe top 20 bet, maybe top 30 bet. Again, probably not getting good odds, but he is someone I do expect to make the cut. DFS-wise, I have found him difficult to get to. And I'll kind of show you why here. I'll just do like a sample dummy build here real quick. So let's see. So, you'd probably go Colin Morikawa. You'd probably go Harris English then. I don't know. Obviously, I like Hubbard. I like Glover. So I would go those guys. And you could do it. Like this is perfectly plausible. And it makes a lot of sense DFS-wise. You have yourself a pretty good build. But obviously, if you're going, let's say, from Morikawa to Scotty, then it becomes more difficult. You have 5.1 left over. I don't like that. So it does, if you're playing Scotty and Harris English together, I have found that difficult. And so most of my Harris English exposure has been with Colin Morikawa, which maybe that's not correct, but you may sort of find outright bet. Like I mentioned on the write-up as well. Let's see what my thoughts were within. I might need to update this. Honestly, I might have just overlooked Harris English because it is at that weird price tag where I just haven't really ended up on naturally in my, 20 entry max lineups. Because, for 150 lineups, I'm definitely getting to him. But yeah, he is at a weird price tag. Again, I kind of just showed you why. So 150 lineups, I'm on him. I feel pretty comfortable about that. I think he makes for a good outright bet, but hand build wise, he's more difficult to get to. But I do think he makes sense outright wise. So it's definitely weird. How do you fit Scotty in with Morikawa? Pretty easily here. I mean, don't use this build. I do this for sample purposes to show you guys the process. Obviously, this lineup has 600 left over. So again, don't do that. But again, just for sample purposes to show you guys how you can make it work. So I like Chan Kim. I like Novak. I like Lauer. Dylan Wu, someone that was kind of the best option in that range. And so obviously you have to go 4 values to fit those 2 in there. But those are 4 values that I shouldn't say that, are going to be good cut sweats. So I don't mind that path as well. So yeah, if you guys don't have any more questions, I'll jump into the lineup builder. If you do, fire them off. Again, happy to help out. So I had already ran 150 lineups just before this video. I'm not changing much this week. I don't feel the need to change that much this week. Now I have to see this here to see what it spit out. So, like, the one thing that I would probably wanna lock in is I want more of Collin Morikawa. So right now, it's only spitting me out 11% of Collin Morikawa. I do want more than that. And one other thing that I probably wanna do is, in lineups that include Scotty Scheffler, I probably also wanna get some of those values that I just mentioned. So I'm gonna try that right now. I'm gonna take these settings off real quick before let's do 30% max exposure. But I wanna try this right now, see if it works. So at least one. Then just some of those values. So Lauer, Woo. I might even go Murray now that I'm talking through it. Obviously, don't need a lot of him. Novak, Chan Kim. Hope I don't have too much of Chan Kim, honestly. I want to try this just with 20 to see if it works. It might not. 20 might be a little bit too much of a constraint. No, it still works. Okay, so nice. That works better. I like that. So we're going more of a fair and balanced approach there. And so I will say, if you are someone that maybe is trying to use the 150 lineups to get Collin Morikawa, or sorry, let me rephrase that. If you are trying to do 150 lineups and you want some that both have or that have both Scotty Scheffler and Collin Morikawa, I would do it this way where you're doing 20 lineups at a time. It's a better way of doing it. So not bad. Is a 5 or 6K golfer a must this week? If you're playing Scotty, yeah, obviously. The thing with it is we have so many good 6K plays this week and some, kind of shoulder shrug 5K plays that I could be talked into. So if that's a yes or no question, like, is it or is it not a must? I would be on the must side, but it really just depends on what you're trying to do. GPP wise, yes. Cash wise, I would probably still say yes. So it's definitely interesting there. But here, I want to try to get more of Collin Morikawa in this, so I'm also going to bump up Collin Morikawa's projection here to very high. Let's just do 125. I'm telling the data here that I want to be on Collin Morikawa. And I could almost create another rule where maybe I don't even want to do max exposures as a total for the player pool, because I can almost just do, all right, I'm either having Scotty Scheffler or Collin Morikawa in every build, like 50-50 or something like that. I wouldn't mind that approach. But again, because I'm loading up on Scotty, well, we got 30% of Collin Morikawa. That's not bad. Let's see here. So some adjustments that I see that I would want to make here. Don't need to be on Maverick McNeely that much. That's kind of it. That is kind of it. Lee Hodges probably don't need to be on that much. Drop down to 15%. Davis Thompson, 15%. One player that I want to touch on as well, and this is one that I feel like it's right. I feel like I should make an outright bet. Just kind of closing thoughts here is Keegan Bradley. And I toyed around with this. If you guys watched the Preferred Lines podcast that I was on with Joe, I mentioned this as well with Keegan Bradley. Kind of a sneaky play this week. He's I kind of joked that he's going to be in contention to win 3-putt on 18 on Sunday to lose to Scotty. If you guys haven't watched that, check it out. But he's casually looking like a good play. I mean, elite stat fit. He really is an elite stat fit. Hasn't really shown as much upside recently, besides early in the season at the Sony Open where he did what I said he did. Second place finish there. He choked. He's a choke artist. But man, he does pop in a lot of spots. Recent form could be a little bit better, could have a little bit more of a spike up, but he does feel like a safe play. Betting wise, I feel kind of comfortable with him. Top 30, top 20 bet even. This is a great setup for him this year for sure. And he's the one player that I don't have outright wise now that if he wins, I'll definitely be kicking myself. So interesting there. Yeah, so this was interesting, Michael. Yeah, that and the Sanjay M withdrawal. I mean, that stuff happens. Everyone's been there. That's been playing PJ DFS. It sucks when it happens. That's kind of just Hideki as well. It sucks. He ruined my first round that week a decent amount. That just happens. It's stupid. That week it hurt even more. Like, my suggestion has always been, You don't even have to give the alternate. Just give us the lowest recorded points other than a player that withdrew it before their tee time. So if a player withdraws in round 1, whatever, we get those points, just so you're not dead in the water after round 1. Like, that has always been the biggest annoyance for me when it comes down to withdrawals. It's like, reward us some points, because it's just dumb that we get a 0. So whoever is the lowest scorer of that week, we should be rewarded those points. It's not like you're being asked for a handout or anything like that. It's just no one likes their week to be over before it even starts. Yeah, those withdrawals suck. So I'll leave this up for about a minute here, unless we get more questions. If not, I'll be jumping out of here. Guess you can give a little current call to the 9 to 5 website as well. So if you guys want to access to the tools that you saw in this video, they are available on the website for just $10 a month. Gives you a detailed view of kind of everything you'd want, a little bit more as well. Again, $10 a month. I don't like to charge more than that. I've been someone that purchases tools, and then it's just like, why am I paying $40 a month, $50 a month when I can get it for 10? Honestly, is the issue. So I set up for you guys that way. Yeah, the biggest thing though that I'm worried about this week is that I don't have enough weather splits. There is that worry with me this week, is that it seems unpredictable, but with the potential delays, I'm worried I don't have proper exposure to that. So that is why I have held off building lineups and finalizing some lineups, because I probably do want to do maybe just 30% of my builds. So like 15 a.m., 15 p.m. for round 1 in terms of for the main slate, like skewing towards the AM, skewing towards the PM. Maybe about 30% total, 15% AM, 15% PM. Let's see. Is there a really good $12 or $5 GPP and DK? I always like to do the $12 single entry. Those single entry ones are typically pretty good. And 5 as well there, Michael. And then last one. Is there a season long? Not right now. There was on Underdog. There is not right now, though. So, I mean, it's still going on, but the drafts for it are done. That was a fun time. Some drafts still going season-wise, but that's already been long done. There are one-and-done contests as well. Those typically take place this year was when the 2024 season started, but it's when the Century Tournament now, it's when that took place. So basically, after the Super Bowl for NFL, that's when a lot of golf stuff kicks off, just as an FY. All right. Appreciate it as well. So yeah, that's going to do it for this video. Again, probably looking at maybe the same time on Wednesday next week. Still trying to finalize like a more certain time. It's always more of a guessing game. I have a 9-month-old typically do these when it's nap time. So fingers we were good today on that. But that's going to be all for today's video, guys. Appreciate you being here. Good luck this week. And as always, let's keep cashing.